It is overtime here again at Old Favorite Friday, where we are continuing the conversation about Dragon Stout. I am joined by Ralph Renault, our head brewer, talking about a beer that I don't think you had until about 5 minutes ago.
Pretty much, yep.
So, quick story about Dragon Stout. I was at one point a brewer and a bartender at the Funky Buddha brew pub, essentially the brewery in Boca Raton. That's where I got my start in the industry. And we always had Dragon Stout. It was one, we had a great beer list. We didn't just make our own beer. We had a very well curated beer list of tons of the best craft beers that are available in South Florida. That's really where the Funky Buddha made their name off of, with being the craft beer place in the area. And Dragon Stout was always on the menu. It was extremely popular. And I believe the owner at the time, Ryan Sense, loved Dragon Stout. It's one of the reasons why he kept it on. And I fell in love with this beer. I thought it was just very unique. 7.5%, it's not quite an imperial stout. A little sweeter. I mean, it's listed as a foreign or export stout. I don't know if you have anything to say about those styles there, Ralph, but just something I really, really enjoyed. I don't see as much anymore, and I saw it and I thought, got to do it for Old Favorite Friday. What do you think?
Well, from just trying, and I'll take another sip before I speak, but yeah, I could definitely see, like you're saying, it's different, especially under the like export stout moniker. I'm used to like more from what you get out of like Ireland or Scotland or that type of thing, which are tend to be a little roastier. You know, think of like some of Guinness's higher ABV offerings. But yeah, I really am enjoying this. It's definitely on the sweeter side, maybe not by today's standards, but just in general. And the thing that actually interests me the most, that I keep going back to, it has a really nice carbonation. That, and I don't know enough about this beer, so I assume experts out there using ale yeast, but the way the carbonation and the little less roasted malts playing it off, it almost gives me like more of a Baltic porter kind of vibes.
That's a really interesting thought there. So first of all, yeah, by current standards, this is dry as a bone. But, and this isn't even quite in that kind of milk stouts category, but does have a little bit more residual sweetness, which, you know, sometimes we rail against residual sweetness, and there's a little bit too much in a lot of the beers that we review here on Old Favorite Friday. But for this style of beer, I think it works. I think it's one of those exceptions. And the roastiness is dialed way, way back. So what I'm getting is all this chocolate, all this caramel. It almost tastes like a hopped up red ale. Right, it's got a big malty flavor profile to it that doesn't really veer into a lot of those harsher, roastier characters. I like what you say about the Baltic Porter aspect of it, because there's a nice softness to this, mouthfeel-wise, that's really, really nice, and it's velvety smooth. You know, it's just a really, really nice, well-balanced beer.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, especially in a hotter climate like down here, and I forget exactly where you said this from,
Jamaica.
but yeah, that's what I knew it was an island, but I could see where in that kind of climate where this would be like a chugger, because you don't really think of stouts in that in that form. But I could see where it's probably like, because this was something when I was just away, we were talking about how different variations of the same style, like if you get a stout in, let's say, California versus if you're in Boston, there'll be different variations even if they fall under the same umbrella. And I could see where this is very much probably curated for where it's distributed. So
for the environment, what you're saying. So, you know, picking that up, making it a little bit less heavy. I mentioned before in the shorter video, it's not molasses, right? It's not that kind of overdone, super extracted motor oil stout. It's a little bit, and also like looking at the beer, I'm getting these nice red. Can't really see this on camera, but these really like red hues to it that kind of lean into that little more of that malty, you know, dark, deep red ale kind of flavor profile that I'm getting. So yeah, really, really drinkable. I love when I can find stouts that are really drinkable, because the stout character, I mean, if you look at a Guinness draft, I mean, that's a light beer. Yeah. Right? So you can do stouts and you can still make them drinkable and refreshing and quaffable, even though they're dark in color. We drink with our eyes. We always think everything dark must be heavy and rich and just the most full flavored thing in the world, and that's not necessarily the case. Yeah, and one thing I wanted to actually comment on, because I noticed that when you were mentioning the color, even though it's definitely not going to show up on camera, maybe if I hold it up to the light, but not very well. But most stouts, or at least modern stouts, are that whole motor oil, can't see through them, almost in the same way hazies are. But this, if you actually hold it up to the light, you can gleam light through it. So that's like a really well crafted. As someone who brews, I really like that it's not just like, oh, turbot, I don't, you know, what's in there. It's a beautiful beer. It's got a beautiful color to it, really nice mouthfeel. It's something that we really appreciate as brewers, is as having a well-crafted, well-balanced beer like this. And also kind of one that runs under the radar. I have seen this from time to time at Total Wine & More. It's kind of where I believe where I picked it up this last time, but it's not widely available. You can't find this everywhere. But you can find this every now and then. You'll find like kind of a corner gas station that picks it up. Maybe it's because the person's from Jamaica, they know the beer really well, they just really love it. But if you do see this beer, I highly recommend, if you're a stout fan, if you're looking for, you know, modern imperial stouts, this isn't gonna be for you. But if you like more of a classic take on the style that goes a little bit sweeter and really does something different with the style in general, I highly recommend you check this out. I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, and I pretty much agree with everything. I'm an old school stout drinker, so yeah, it's exactly what you said. If you just enjoy stouts as a style and want to try everything and you're not closed-minded, I would definitely pick this up.
So a couple weeks ago, we did an imperial stout from Sri Lanka. Now we have a export stout from Jamaica. We got to find another great stout from outside the U.S. and a kind of an area that we don't really think about for beer. So Ralph, you on that? You're gonna find
that works. Stouts of the World Series.
There we go. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching the video. Please like, subscribe, do all that cool stuff. Poke around the channel, see some other conversations that Ralph and I and other guests are having about other great, incredible beers. And we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.